Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back with another one here. It is the Authority Project, and I am Brian S. Arnold here, and I have my new good friend, Charles J. Reed, and he is here, he says, to help us small businesses beat the IRS. We can do it. Is that right, Charles?
Absolutely.
Well, we shall see. We shall see on this episode of the Authority Project.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, feast your eyes and tune your ears. It's that time again. We are live with another episode of the Authority Project. It's the video podcast streamed on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Periscope, where we talk to digital marketers, business coaches, and creators of all kinds on how they've built authority in their field and how you can mimic their success. Developing authority, building your audience, and attracting better clients to your own business. Now, without further ado, let's bring to the virtual stage your host, Brian S. Arnold.
And we are back with another one, peoples. This is the Authority Project. You are the project, and you want to slap authority to your name so you can sell more of what you're great at. And we are here, also here with I want something grand to say about you. We'll just call you Charles. Charles J. Reed is here, and I'm so excited to talk about beating the IRS. So, how are you doing today, Charles?
I'm doing wonderful, Brian. It's a great day in Texas and great day in the U.S. So, yeah.
Awesome. And I just, I'm going to, I don't know if I want to say apologize to you, but he told me earlier about the green screen issue he had. He has a great green screen background that he can't show today for some reason. So, just
video technology is not where I'm an authority. Believe me.
Just know it was going to look very, very nice, very pretty. So just imagine that in your mind. There's a whole bunch of payroll stuff on the background. It's beautiful. But anyways, let's get started, Charles. Can you please tell us, first of all, who you are personally and then professionally?
Sure. I grew up in Iowa. I'm an Iowa boy, Midwestern boy. After high school, I joined the United States Marine Corps. Spent 4 years, including a couple of years overseas, a combat tour in Vietnam. Was stationed in Kansas City when I came back. Met and married my wife. She had 5 kids when I married her. I claim insanity. But we were married for 46 years before she passed. I found that my military experience was not valued by business. Incorrectly, but that's the way it was. It still is to a great extent. And so I went to college, got my bachelor's, my master's degree, passed my CPA exam while I was still in graduate school. Went to work for Texas Instruments, worked for other small and larger businesses for a dozen years, did some turnarounds, and decided I was never going to get to the top of a corporation because I don't have the political skills. I'm unwilling to stab people in the back and toss them off the ladder. Okay. So I figured if I was going to run a business, I'd have to start my own like my father did. So 30 years ago, Ruth and I, my wife, started our own business, and here we are 30 years later having a good time.
Awesome. That is great. That is awesome. So let's talk first of all about your current project. Do you have a current project that you want to share?
Well, the most recent thing I've done is my newest book, the Payroll Book, a guide for small business and startups. It's designed for small businesses. It's not, if you're a Fortune 500 company, you got somebody on staff that could, knows this stuff. But if you're a small business, it's a real guide to everything payroll related. And for startups, it's great because it tells you the best way to get set up, who's an employee, who's not, what's taxable, what's income, what's deductions, how to actually do the payroll, handbooks, PEOs, all kinds of associated things. Basically, it's 30 years of experience distilled down to 95,000 words.
Wow. Yeah. So probably won't get everything, but I'm sure it looks like a pretty thick book there, sir.
It's a nice book. And for your viewers and your listeners, if they will go on to the payrollbook.com, they can get a free one by in the discount code, entering the discount code podcast. Okay. And we'll send them a free book.
Oh, awesome. That is great. That is great. I'll make sure that that is reiterated or defined on the post, social post for sure. Thank you so much for that. So one last question before we dive in. Can you tell us right now in your current state what your daily routine is?
Well, I've gotten to be an old man. I've survived.
Yes.
I normally work out in the morning, either cardio or resistance training. Come to work, work most of the day. I don't eat lunch. I eat breakfast and dinner, but lunch I keep the weight down.
Okay.
I'm at my desk or with my people. I talk to clients. Currently, I'm doing 3 to 5 podcasts a week with nice people like you, interesting people,
Awesome.
and discussing what we do. Go home. The house is a little lonely because Ruth passed away 6 years ago, and get up again the next morning and do it again. But I have fun. I like what I do. I like my staff. I like my clients. I love playing with the IRS. It's a game, and I'm good at it. So it's always nice when you're good at a game.
Right. Well, that's awesome. So let's this segues into my next question then. So, Charles, what's your deal with payroll taxes, and do you have a personal beef with the IRS? I want the truth, Charles. The truth.
From time to time, yeah, I do. And I've got some technical issues. And this is one thing. I was on IRSAC for the last 3 years, which is the IRS Advisory Council, which means we met with the commissioner and the commissioners of the various business entities and their staffs, solving problems and discussing things. And it allowed me to get some of my angst out on some of these things and get some clarification, because I've had problems on several things, and I got a hold of the right people when I was in DC, and we solved some problems actually that are nationwide. So it was a great 3 years. I sat down and had lunch with Chuck Reddick several times, had drinks with him one night. He's a nice guy. He's an outsider. He's not a professional IRS guy. He's a tax lawyer. So, yeah, I get in beefs with them just like everybody else in the world does. I mean, they're kind of invasive.
Yeah.
They're like termites. They just kind of come in from spots and eat things up.
Yeah.
But I've learned, and I'm a compliance expert now. I've learned all the things. I know the rules sometimes better than the IRS does, and read the case law. Being a U.S. tax court practitioner and trained in this stuff, I understand tax law intimately, at least in my area, and can prosecute. As a U.S. tax court practitioner, I can actually go to U.S. tax court and represent my clients without being an attorney. There's a couple hundred of us in the country, and we're authorized and licensed. And I have a U.S. tax court bar card, even though I'm not an attorney. And I have yet to lose a case in tax court. I'm sure I will someday, but I have yet to so far.
Wow. That's amazing. So this is a very unique niche though. So why do you see that is such a problem with startups as opposed to just other taxes in general, as far as your specific niche in payroll tax?
Small businesses, first of all, they don't know what they don't know. They're a startup. They may have worked for somebody and gotten a paycheck. They understand a paycheck.
Right.
But the intricacies of the federal, state, and local taxing authorities, of which there is an excess of 15,000 of them, okay, 40% of small businesses get penalized every year on employment taxes. Fiscal 2018, the IRS issued $13 billion in employment tax penalties. $13 billion.
It seems like they're waiting for it, right? Waiting for you to make a mistake, it seems.
Well, it's so easy to make a mistake. It's just so easy. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're not experienced, if you don't have the right software, if you're not trained, if you don't have the systems in place, if you don't understand the intricacies, in my book, I list trap after trap after trap. I use a hockey mask icon, and so watch these things.
Okay.
And it's so easy. And if you don't know what you don't know, you're going to screw up. It's just that simple. It's just way too complex. I've spent 30 years, ran into a new problem Friday that I had never run into before in 30 years. I had to get on the research and do legal research to figure out exactly what was going on. I mean, I've got the IRS tax code in my office, and believe me, it's worn and pages turned down and so on. But regulations exceed that 100 times over, and rules, and then you have all the states and everything else. It's just, I don't do a lot of things. I don't build my own house. I don't build my own car. I don't make my own clothes. I don't grow my own beef. I don't do a lot of things because I don't know how. I grow some vegetables in the backyard. That's about it.
Right.
But it's a whole profession, and it's a whole set of law. And if you don't read up on it, if you're not familiar with it, if you don't take the trades, I get 5 newsletters a week from the IRS on various aspects.
Okay.
And this is what I do for a life. I used to be a registered investment advisor and a stockbroker, and I gave that up because I didn't have time to look at the market on a daily basis and be able to take care of my clients and do what I do. It was just too much for you. You can't do it all. And so any businessman knows you got to focus on what you're good at. You got to focus on your core competencies. You got to focus on what you want to get done and outsource the rest of it. So, I outsource a lot of things, and we act as an outsource for a lot of businesses because I'm a compliance expert. This is what I do for a living. Not only do we do the payroll, but when a mistake happens, whether it be yours or the Internal Revenue Service or the state, we can fix it because we know how. One of my favorite stories, in 19, we finally solved a problem that was from 2010. Took 9 years. It was a $95,000 penalty the IRS wanted to impose. And I'd gone through all the steps of appeal. And this is one of the ways you solve tax problems is you keep appealing it. It's a whole lot of no's followed by a single yes. And I was finally got stonewalled trying to get a hold of one guy I needed at a national level. So being a NERSAC, I'd met Chief of Appeals. I called the Deputy Chief of Appeals, Kathy, and said, Kathy, so-and-so won't get back to me. She said, Charles, I'll have him call you. He called me that afternoon after I've been trying to get a hold of him for a year. And I explained what was going on because he was the next step in the appeals process before going to the Chief of Appeals and then to court. And he said, okay, let's open it back up. Let's get a new set of eyes on it. And 3 months later, my client got a $400 refund. And the $95,000 penalty went away.
Wow.
That's what a compliance expert can do for clients. Now, we talk about ourselves as being insurance for small business payrolls. You have insurance on your car, your house, maybe your life. And if something goes wrong, you're covered. Well, not only do we do the payroll, but we provide free insurance on top of it. If something goes wrong, we can fix it.
Awesome. We'll definitely get more into that. I got a question that segues into that as well. So let me give you this scenario. So you have a startup or you're a solopreneur. You start making a bit of money, right? And then let me making a bit more money than you anticipated, maybe. So now you get to this point where I need to hire. I want to be the best employer ever, and I just want to make sure my employees have everything that they want and da-da-da-da. What do you caution before one gets into all of that when it comes to this type of thing?
Oh, hiring your first employee is always a bear. And hiring the first non-producer is even worse. You've got to understand the relationship. You've got to understand the taxation. You've got to understand the nuances of payroll so you can properly minimize your costs. And I'm not saying trying to minimize what you pay the employee, but minimize the taxes, make sure everything's tax deductible, make sure everything is proper, make sure all your forms are filed, all your deposits are made. Avoid those penalties that, as I said, 40% of small businesses get penalized every year, and it averages $800. And it can be a lot more than that. Believe me, I've seen them in the tens of thousands of dollars as penalties. So you've got to understand what you have to do to stay within the box of the law. As long as you stay in that box, you're okay. It's when you vary off here. Okay, I'm going to hire somebody. Well, I'll just pay him cash. No. Okay, don't do that. Well, I'm just going to hire him as a contractor. Well, that's not a choice you get to make, nor do they. There's a whole body of law determining what's a contractor and what's an employee, and different types of employees. Well, I'm going to hire my wife or my husband. Well, okay, but you got to be careful. And it may not be quite as taxable because of a family relationship. You may not have to pay certain taxes on your 16-year-old son that's in there sweeping up and cleaning up things. There's a lot of things that go into this. And you've got to know your numbers. Have you filed with your state? Have you filed with your local authority? Have you filed with the federal government? Do you have all your tax numbers, all your tax rates? Do you know where to file your forms? Do you know when to file the forms? You know how to make deposits? So you set up for EFTPS to get on your phone and send your deposit from your bank electronically? You're not? Okay, you got a problem. So you got all these things you got to go through to get set up to do the payroll properly. Yeah, I'm going to hire Sally and I'm going to pay her $15 an hour. That's simple. It's all the rest of it that gets complex.
Okay.
Because Sally wants her W-2 at the end of the year. Okay.
Right.
And all her tax withholdings, and they all have to have been deposited and filed and papered over and on and on and on and on.
Right. Okay.
So all those things you don't know.
So the things, I just got an additional quick question to that. The thing about getting virtual assistants where it could be, maybe it has nothing to do with your state or federal, possibly, or does it? When you're doing, maybe they're international, you're getting into that realm. How does that work?
Oh, you're going to hire a foreign national.
Okay.
And where are you going to pay them? You're going to pay them in the country of origin? You're going to pay them in this country? Are they a contractor there? Or are they an employee? They're going to tell you, well, you just need to put on your credit card and, pay me $20 an hour or whatever. And that may be all you have to do. But if you ask me, I'm going to ask a number of questions, and then I'm going to have to do some research and possibly check tax treaties. But your virtual assistant isn't going to tell you that. They're just going to tell you, "Oh, just put it on your MasterCard. We'll take care of it."
Right. Oh, this is amazing. This is great stuff. So, what about paying yourself? That was a great last question. What about paying? How does that work? Because that always seems to get complicated, especially when you're starting out. Because you need to, you're starting out and you're paying your bills, and then and then now you have to figure out how all this other extra stuff goes. Well, how can I pay myself and then pay for the business, all this kind of stuff? How does that work?
Okay. Well, it depends on what entity you're doing business in. If you're a sole proprietor, you haven't set up anything, which means you're personally liable for every problem that arises, which is not a smart way to be. Well, then you just write yourself a check. But at the end of the year, you fill out your Schedule C, and you have to have all your expenses and all your income. And then your net income down at the bottom of your Schedule C is taxable for employment tax purposes. And you needed to have made estimated payments during the year based on how much you make at the end of the year that you may not have known earlier on, but you still got to make them. But then if you say, okay, I'm going to get smart. I'm going to incorporate. I'm going to form an LLC and file as an S corp because that's a good tax entity. That gives me a lot of tax advantages. Okay. Well, my friend, when you're an S corporation and you work in a corporation, You are an employee.
Okay. Yeah.
You've got to pay unemployment tax. You've got to pay employment taxes and unemployment taxes, and you have to file and you have to deposit. Every month, you need to make a deposit at a minimum, sometimes more, depends on how much you take out. And every quarter, you have to file forms with the federal government and with the state and maybe with the local every quarter. And then at the end of the year, you have more forms to file. We have a lot of clients that are just one person, and it's not worth their time, trouble, energy, or effort to take care of payroll. We just handle it for them. And we're an outsource for them. But if you do it yourself, you got to do all this stuff. You got to learn all this stuff, even if it's just you.
Yeah.
Okay. Before you hire Sally, if you put yourself in a corporation, you work in it, and then you have to pay yourself so much. You can take some distributions, but if you take too many distributions, the IRS will come back in and say, no, that's not reasonable compensation. We're going to take part of these distributions you took, these dividends you took from your corporation, and we're going to reclassify them as payroll. And all the deposits that you should have made and all the taxes you should have paid are now past due with penalties and interest. And this may be 2 years down the road.
Wow.
And you have 2 years of penalties and interest build up that you had no idea was going to happen. Talk about bending over. Anyway.
Wow. This is great stuff. This is amazing enlightenment, should I say. So why not, Charles, why not just have, get one of these new tools, fancy new tools to do your payroll? You know what I'm saying? Why try to do this on your own? Just do some of these new fancy little software things that are popping up all over the place.
Well, I don't know of any fancy little things to do payroll effectively because it's more than just an app. It's more than calculations. There's paperwork involved.
Yeah.
There's movement of money involved. You got to move money out of your bank into the IRS and into the state. Are you going to do that on an app? Do you know who's behind that app? Do you know who is that app out of Russia that you just gave all your banking information to? Not me. Okay. Not me. Sure, you can use, and there's over 4,000 service bureaus out there. Okay, and you can use QuickPay.
Yeah,
it's not bad until there's a mistake. IRS calls. You call up QuickPay, and you get their you get a hold of somebody.
Yeah,
and they go, I'm sorry, we don't handle those things. You have to go talk to your CPA. And if your CPA was a payroll tax expert, he'd be doing your payroll for you. Okay? So you're going to pay him to learn what to do to solve a problem that QuickPay. Okay, our biggest competitor is ADP. Okay? They have a call center. Big call center. You can get a hold of somebody.
Yeah.
When you call back, you get a hold of somebody else. And you get a hold of somebody else. And we had a case that we took to tax court about a W-2 that was issued improperly by ADP because the client had come to us, and ADP went ahead and created a W-2. It was late in the year. Created a W-2 for what they paid through ADP.
Yeah.
Well, 2 years later, the IRS wants all that income. It wants all the taxes on that income. And so the client called ADP and said, hey, this was wrong. And ADP said, well, after a year, we don't fix things.
Wow.
That was one of my tax court cases because I couldn't get anybody at the IRS to listen to me. So for $60, we filed a petition to tax court. And once that was filed, it went back to docketed appeals. And 6 weeks later, the district council called me and said, Charles, forget about it. We've taken care of it.
Awesome. So that leads me to my second to last question here. We say it's obviously a very complicated thing. Taxes are always going to be complicated. They're always changing, just like anything else. They're always changing around.
Oh, they're changing terribly.
Yeah. So say you're here, people are listening and watching, they give up. They're not good with numbers, right? They just they're going to screw up. They're never going to screw up. what are the advantages of going with a company like yours and, and just doing that instead of just trying to go through it yourself? Segue yours.
Well, we obviously believe in outsourcing payroll, okay?
Yeah.
Because we bring to the table, any of the service bureaus bring to the table the ability to generate the paychecks, generate direct deposits, have debit cards, all those little things that are too complicated for a sole proprietor or a small business to handle and make do. And it's a good thing for your employees because you can offer things like direct deposit and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And you've got somebody to remind you, and then you don't have to worry about all the tax deadlines. You don't have to worry about the calculations. You don't have to worry about mistakes, because if we make a mistake, we eat it. We fix it. And I wish I could say we've never made a mistake on a payroll. I wish. Okay, it happens. We mishear something, we miswrite something, we miskeystroke something. The computer goes down. Who knows? Whatever. So it happens, not rarely, but it happens, and we fix it. But okay, let's say you're really good at this and you're really good at numbers, and you do all that, and the IRS makes a mistake. What do you do now? What do you do? Who do you call? How do you handle it? What's your level of appeals? What's your next step? I guarantee you, if you get a penalty letter from the IRS and you write them back a letter explaining exactly what happened, do you know what the response is? No, we're not going to abate it.
Yeah, exactly.
Always. The first letter, always they say no.
Right.
The second letter, they normally say no. It's only on the third letter do you start to get people interested. And the fourth and the fifth and the appeals hearings and the due process hearings and all the other rights you have under the law that you don't know. We do.
Yeah.
And we handle it. And it's part of the service. It doesn't cost you anything. Okay? It's part of it's part of our fee. We throw that in as your free insurance. We take care of it. And we're compliance experts as opposed to some of our competitors who do a fine job of cutting a paycheck or sending a direct deposit. I'm not arguing that. They do a fine job. And you may never need our expertise. You may never need the fire insurance on your house. But if that sucker burns down, you'll be glad you had it.
Exactly. Right. This has been awesome. This is, like I said, very enlightening, amazing answers. Love that you've been here. This has just been great. So I have one last question for you, Charles, and it goes something like this. I ask this of all of my guests, and it goes something like this. It has people here who are watching now. They will be listening later, and maybe they have similar goals, similar interests, similar paths, and they want to do the same things that you're doing, Charles. Making an impact with people, helping them with their taxes or so with their payroll. Can you tell them, and I'll put you front and center in your own words, how they can become an authority in this space?
There's a couple of things. Study, learn. You never learn enough. You never are an expert enough. I'm learning new things every day, every week. I became a tax court practitioner in my 60s. I go to school. I take courses. I do seminars. I learn and I learn and I learn. And that allows me to be more knowledgeable. But beyond that, I've got a couple of phrases, a couple of sayings that I use and I believe in. One, as a business, there's never a traffic jam on the extra mile. Go the extra mile for your clients. Because your competitors won't. They'll be amazed. And then the other thing that's major, and I've stolen it from Bill Gates. People overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade. So work hard and keep working every month, every year, year after year after year. And you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish in knowledge and expertise and authority over a long period of time. It's like compound interest. It's very, very powerful.
Amazing. I love that. That's amazing, Charles. This has been great. That's all I can say. This has been fantastic. You're awesome. And flash that book one more time. Show us that book again before we get out of here.
Sure. The Payroll Book, a guide for small business and startups. Charles Reed at the bottom. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and thepayrollbook.com is the website for it. And again, with the promo code podcast, we'll send you a free one.
Awesome.
At our cost. My pleasure.
Great. Thank you so much. And I am, like I said, I'm ecstatic that you're here. This is a perfect topic that everyone should be getting into, and hopefully people will listen to you and not get burned later. And you can beat the IRS. So there is that. People, as I always say, go sign up at theauthorityletter.com, join that list and build your authority platform. We have a 3-part video series there, and I give you weekly real talk letters there to help you in the online industry. I'm getting even, how can I say, I'm getting even better at writing now. Writing better. I'm getting back to my old roots there, Charles. So very imaginative, but very substantive as well. So take a look at that, people, if you desire. And I am about to retire for this show. Any final words here before we get out of here, Charles?
Brian, it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Take care, everybody. And once again, let me remind you to build it, share it, and they will come. We're out of here. See ya.
And that's a wrap for this episode of The Authority Project. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, we want to hear from you. Subscribe, rate, and give an honest review. Share and tell your friends so they can hear too. And for even more authority building tactics, be sure to sign up at theauthorityletter.com. Get free weekly content and ongoing digital product giveaways to help you on your entrepreneurial journey. We certainly hope you got a key takeaway, or maybe an aha moment from today's broadcast. Just remember, it's your authority. Build it, share it, and they will come. Until next time.